And I think Pucha might be the first Dominican I've ever met.
Wow.
Growing up, and I know I met a Cuban before, but I think Pucha was the first Dominican.
I guarantee you've met a Cuban before me living in Florida.
Before you, yeah. But I'm saying Dominican. Like, Pucha was the first. And I didn't even know this nigga was Dominican at first. I thought this nigga was like Venezuelan or some shit, probably. Not fucking. I wasn't gonna say Cuban. Don't even. He was looking for Cuban or Puerto Rican.
Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah, like I never really in middle school, like growing, like 6th grade. I'm like, I didn't know what the fuck a Dominican was. Another thing too is Latinx, Latine. What would you guys like to be called?
Butchered.
Another thing. So for the Hispanic Heritage Month, which is probably somewhat of a controversial name, like maybe it should be called Latinx Heritage Month or Latina Heritage Month or something along those lines. Anyways, Hispanic Heritage Month is coming to an end, and we came across some articles that we read, and we thought it'd be interesting to discuss the origins of some of these words to refer to people. Even that's a complicated thing, but basically people that come from Latin America or come from Spanish descent and things of that nature. What should they be called? Discussing how you feel about certain terms. How do you yourself would like to be identified? Things of that nature.
Let's just start off with how we'd like to be identified. Like which term we like. You can do doughy, and we'll do the normal round that we do.
I mean, I've always just Latino.
Really?
That's like, Latino has always been like since I was young. Hispanic was like a white way to call someone Spanish or like Latino. I felt like Hispanic was always what was on like the paper that you had to scribble in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I always found it interesting that people in the hood call Hispanic people Spanish. So, because that means you're from Spain, but that's absolutely not what anybody was from. Actually, I had one friend in the hood from Spain, but almost nobody's from Spain in my life, and yet everybody in the hood calls all people like who speak Spanish, and so they just call them Spanish.
That's interesting.
I just always found that interesting. But what about you, Tony?
I don't really care for the name as much, but I've always said I'm Hispanic.
Gotcha.
I don't the Latino X, all that extra shit. I just think it's just extra shit. Like people just want to be more specific to nationality and shit like that. But it's just, I understand the Spanish part because that was just the ignorant shit in the hood, right? Like, oh, you're Spanish. Like people never really understood that Spain. They never really correlate those two together.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. That was also normal to, oh, you're Spanish. I even said it sometimes. Yeah, I'm Spanish. Like whatever. And if you can't tell, I'm Spanish. But Hispanic was the normal thing. That, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's what I take. I like Hispanic. It don't matter if I had to pick one. That's it.
What about you,
Not much to it.
Me? Historically, I would probably say Hispanic, but as of late, I found all the terms to be so confusing that I just completely dropped even mentioning whether I'm Hispanic or not. I'm just a brown guy, and my parents are from another country, and I'm American. I don't know. I don't really tell anybody what I am. Like I'm Hispanic. I haven't said that in years.
That's fair. I think that growing up, I always used Hispanic. That was the one that I used, and I think it's because, like Doey said, it was on all the forums. So I was like, okay, that's the easiest way to call myself. In researching, Latino is the other one I always used. I do like Latina. I think it's cool. I think it's an interesting way to have like a non-gendered term. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so I know that there's some people that have issues with that because Spanish is a gendered language. There's Latino, Latina. Like, I think it's cool to have a term that's just a neutral one. I think it's a cool way the language evolves. I think Chicano is interesting. I didn't realize that one was specific for people from like Mexico. I didn't realize it was specific for like Mexican Americans. And I always thought that was a cool term, but I never knew when it was right to use that. But so yeah, I like Chicano. I think that's a good term too. Hispanic, on researching over the past few years, it does have some weird roots to it and some weird shit that goes along with it. It implies being like a Spanish people, which not quite accurate anymore. I'm, a couple hundred years at least removed from my Spanish, from any like Spain people being in my bloodline.
And it's also weird because like being Dominican, right? There's a lot of native people and a lot of black that's mixed in with some of that European, right? And to almost like to call yourself Hispanic, like of Spain, is still to deny, like it almost feels racist, like you're denying your blackness and denying
your indigenous roots,
your indigenous roots, to say like I'm just European, like I'm still just Spanish. Like something about that, reading about it does feel a little racist. Like the origin of that word. But I don't know. For me growing up, I don't know why, it felt like the people that called themselves Latino were like Central Americans, like Mexican, like pretty, and I just did not identify with Central Americans. Like I felt like I was like Caribbean, right? Like, and they have very different cultures, like the music's different, the way they eat, the behavior is like very distinct. So I just never identified with the word Latino, like ever. Like it just to me means like Mexican or like just all those Central American countries pretty much.
That's funny because I would never have seen it like that. Like,
yeah, I also would have never seen it like that either.
Yeah, because to me, like, go ahead.
Just perspective, I guess, how I was taught the word Latino and what I thought it was meant when I grew up.
Yeah, I would have never seen
like
it as
a body. A body is a Latino.
Well, no,
Dominican.
you're being specific. Like a body is not Latino. A body is Boricua. He's a Puerto Rican.
But they are Latino. Like,
no, they are Latino. But I'm saying no one's calling a Hispanic. Oh, you're a body as a reference to saying you're Latino or Hispanic. You know what I mean?
Puerto Rican people are Latino to him, and I'm saying the way I understood the word, even though I knew that was the case, I never met Puerto Rican people that called themselves Latino or Dominican people that call themselves Latino. Like to me, so I'd never associated that word with those people. Like to me, it was like a lot of Mexican people would call themselves Latinos. Like, so it just, to me, it felt like, and again, this is me growing up, this is me as a kid, right? So like, I mean, I don't have a lot of perspective in the world. I'm like, did I say something interesting?
Luca hit the button.
Okay, Luca's trying to get the party started. He's like, yo, fuck all.
There might be a good bit there of me jumping. I was not prepared for the hype words.
It scared me. It scared me. I didn't expect him to hit it.
He's looking down at it again now. He's like, hold on, that just made a noise.
Because he probably heard it on my shit.
He got scared. He got scared.
Luca's hyped.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I see what you're saying now, that you wouldn't have. I get it now. I was
just
confused
like, even Eddie Guerrero, the Latino Heat. It's like, I don't identify with the Latino Heat. All right, like, I don't. You know?
What was the guy that did the sexual tease dance? What's his name? Before he got on the. Before he had like the
the wrestler
the towel.
Oh, you're talking about Razor Ramon?
No, it's
no. You're talking about Val Venus. That guy's not even
Val Venus.
This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. No, you're right, dude. Val Venus is. Yo, that was interesting. He had like a bunch of drills, like drilling holes and like showing it like his video, and he's like walking in. Like it's nothing but sexual innuendos.
Jeez.
Comes out with the towel, he's like rubbing his body down. Like that shit was terrible. Val Venus. Jesus.
So
I forgot all about that.
So I will say that like my friendship with y'all has been awesome. Because I grew up in Texas. I grew up in central Texas. So like the Latino people that I've met are just all Mexican. It's mostly Mexican people that I've met. So it's cool like meeting people that are different flavors of, of like in the Latino spectrum, basically. It's interesting.
It's awesome. You got like the Neapolitan right here. You got the Cuban, you got the Bori, you got the Dominican.
I didn't meet my first Puerto Rican person until I went up to New York back in like my college days.
No way.
Yeah, the girl I was dating at the time. That was the first Puerto Rican I've ever met in my life. Like she's half Italian, half Puerto Rican.
Oh, you're lucky.
That's a mix.
Yeah. What a mix.
Yeah, it's all the white girls, they be claiming they're Puerto Rican. They be just pure white. They just want to put some sazon in their body. Like you know what I'm saying? They just want some flavor. Like it was always funny. All the white girls in school and in junior high back in the day, high school, they're either Puerto Rican or Cuban. They're just all white. I always found that so interesting. They don't speak a lick of Spanish. They don't know where their family's from any of these countries, but they're Puerto Rican or Cuban. I don't know. I always found that shit so fascinating. I'm like, you lying, all right? You lying. There ain't no reason to lie.
It is funny because I'm trying to remember when's the first time I met another Hispanic person, or not like Hispanic, but like a Cuban or a Dominican. And I think Pucha might be the first Dominican I've ever met.
Wow.
Growing up, and I know I met a Cuban before, but I think Pucha was the first Dominican.
I guarantee you've met a Cuban before me living in Florida.
Before you, yeah. But I'm saying Dominican. Like, Pucha was the first. And I didn't even know this nigga was Dominican at first. I thought this nigga was like Venezuelan or some shit, probably. Not fucking. I wasn't going to say Cuban. Don't even. He was looking for Cuban or Puerto Rican.
Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah, like I never really, in middle school, like growing, like 6th grade, I'm like, I didn't know what the fuck a Dominican was.
When I moved to Florida, everybody was like, "You half black, half white," because it's a common mix in Lake Worth, and that's what everybody used to ask me, like if I was mixed. Because the Cubans be so white. Florida.
I think the idea of self identity is interesting. It's very cool. I mean, I've told you all this before. I think I've hinted at this. It took me a long time to be comfortable with my brownness. I grew up with a lot like a majority white school, basically. Especially in my early like developmental days, elementary. I had classes where I was the only brown dude in there. Partially because I was in like the gifted and talented stuff. So like, it was all white kids plus me,
Yeah.
So it took a long time for me to get comfortable with my brownness. Speaking of that cancel culture stuff, I made some jokes back in my high school days that I would not be proud of making now, and giving the cosign to some of my white buddies to make jokes like that back in those days.
Right.
Would you care to
No, dude.
Somebody said he's not proud of it.
Obviously,
this is like akin to him being like, "Who was it? Who were you with? What is their first and last name?
Give me their social." It was a joke. Obviously, he's not going to say he's not proud of it.
But yeah, so it took me a long time to self-identify. Then it's cool. It's interesting. I mean, I've recently like started celebrating like Day of the Dead, because I think it's such a cool holiday. I think it's so cool having a holiday that's just about remembrance and dealing with death in a positive way, like dealing with death in a way where you're celebrating a person's life instead of being sad because that person's gone. I think it's a very Mexican style holiday to take sadness and turn it into something positive.
Yo, grieving is a serious thing, and being able to have some light through all that darkness is very good.
And I think you see things like that in a lot of Latino cultures, like the specific cultures where there's a lot of like we're people that it's made from sadness, we're people that's made from rape and conquest, and you turn it into something positive. You give a spin on it. You add that flavor that Pucha was talking about.
Yeah, adobo. But we don't fuck with Goya no more.
Fuck Goya.
Fuck Goya and fuck
We don't fuck with Goya?
Man, it's so sad too, because I
Goya's delicious.
Those Goya beans are so fucking good.
Goya beans are the best.
They do have the lock hold, the like headlock.
Everybody out here copping Badia now. Like,
I've been copping Badia though.
I do the HEB brand here in Texas, because the HEB brand's pretty on point.
Yeah, Goya's the best though. Big sad. Now, yeah, but I guess going back a bit to the how to identify people, I guess. How do you feel being a part of like, you know, the Latinx community, as some people would say, right? Like, because me personally, I wouldn't, like, while I wouldn't personally identify, like, if someone asked me, I would never say, oh, I'm Latinx or whatever. It's just, it's not something I would say for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just too new, and I grew up with the terms I grew up with, and I never really had a problem with them.
I
And
agree.
everything I read, while there are things that are somewhat problematic, which is kind of why I dropped even the Hispanic thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really say like I'm Hispanic. I'll just say, yeah, like I'm Dominican. Like, all right, yeah, like my family were mostly black Dominicans. Like you know, like I kind of, you know, while I would do that, I'm not offended if somebody called me Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, Latina, nothing like that. I do find there's something about our society today that there's like this race to like keep coming up with newer and complexer terms to describe very, very like specific things that I don't know what value it really brings us sometimes. Like
I
like
think
not to knock any like trans people or nothing, but like there's so many terms now. Like, believe it or not, if you go and look at, there's there's dozens of ways to like identify people. Like it almost comes off like if they're just names now. Like it's not even just to because like they're so specific in some cases that they might be the only like there's people that just make up their own things too. Like I find that interesting. Like, because it's almost like you're coming up with a new name for yourself as opposed to an identification of like a group or something.
Are we talking about like the cis white gendered male or whatever that, like those names? Like, what are you talking about? What names?
Well, like there's he, him. There's
she, they, them, their.
Right. There's
can you call somebody a their?
You can. It's complicated doing like the they pronoun. I would use it all day. I respect people's pronouns, but I definitely have to slow myself down a little bit whenever I'm talking, or my trans buddies that prefer they. I'll slip up sometimes, and they just have to correct myself. I think self identity is important. I think that having terms that to identify yourself, a box to put yourself into, I think it's an important thing. It makes you feel a little bit less, just kind of floating. It gives you an anchor a little bit for who you are as a person.
I'm sorry. I don't find that, like, I don't care for that, I guess. Maybe I'm weird, but I don't need to be identified as something to feel like a part of something. You know what I mean? Like, that's why
I think you're privileged though, like because you're a cisgendered man who's straight. Like you're almost the default. Like so, like you're not gonna. You don't really need a reason to identify yourself. But you see, a lot of women are proud to be women, right? Which is not something that a lot of men are proud to be men. You know what I'm saying?
Just men.
Yeah. It's because we're kind of, unfortunately, the default.
Yep.
Like, and so when I talk to my wife, she's proud of all these things about being a woman that I don't have feelings similar to that as a man.
Is it because
being a man is celebrated so much all throughout society that we don't feel the need to have to celebrate it?
Yeah, I mean it's why you don't have like white pride parades except by fucking racist people. it's the default. It's been the way it has been. So it's not a thing that needs that level of celebration. It's like a Hispanic Heritage Month, which I think that name might change, honestly.
To what?
Probably Latino Heritage Month, Latina Heritage Month, something like that.
Did they take a vote on it? Like, is there going to be like a voting thing amongst the Hispanics or Latinos, Latinx?
That'd be funny. The ballot just shows up in your mail one day.
Yeah.
I think a White Heritage Month would be kind of cool. Believe it or not, maybe there'll be some Nazis and KKK people that are trying to like put like like what's the word? Like I guess use it as a cudgel to like shit on other groups of people. But I find this so interesting that we look at it's kind of, there's like a little bit of a racism in this as well. But we look at all people really, except for white and black people, as where are you from? What's your heritage? Like, what's your background? And unfortunately, black people black people have been robbed of some piece of that. Like a lot of black people, right?
Yeah,
Like
they don't know where they're from specifically, because it's just generations of being stolen.
Right. And white people, believe it or not, they do still have some of that. Like, you got the Irish people, you got the Italian people, you got like Gaelic people, you got like, all the, there's a heritage to them. But over time, it just becomes whiteness as all these groups become accepted. And I don't know, it'd be kind of cool to go back to kind of celebrating some of that heritage, to kind of show the diversity in white people as well, and show that they're not just one big mass of people. And maybe it'll dispel a little of how like how big like a white group really is into, I guess, subgroups or whatever. But
the Italians just had this little festival in Little Italy, and really nice. Celebrating Italian culture.
I don't think I necessarily disagree with you, Pooch, actually, because I think that would be interesting to get into, because white has always been this kind of weird moving target. There was a time when the Irish people were not considered white. They were lower on the social structure, and they were not considered white people. They were the immigrants that everyone was scared about, was coming to steal their jobs, was these Irish people. And there's been moving targets like that. I mean, Greek people from Greece, are they white?
Right. Like, our society considers, if you're from Europe, you're white at this point. Like, all those cultures are not white people.
America's weird though. America just like, it's like almost nothing outside of America exists to Americans.
Yeah.
We don't give a fuck what's going on in China or any of these other countries. Not the way they're invested in our culture.
Yeah. What's even interesting too is a lot of other cultures, basically, if there wasn't slavery somewhere, they don't think of race the way we do.
Yep.
Like, you see a lot of Spanish, like, colonized places, South America, Central America, the Caribbean. We think of race the way that Americans think of race as well, right? But if you go to Europe and stuff like that, a lot of these people don't even they don't think of themselves as really white, because they don't think in those terms like we think in those terms, And it's interesting.
There's some crazy shit that out of like Japan and Korea too. Like we all watch anime. We've all read mangas. There's blackface in a lot of older like media like that, and it's because they don't have that history, so they don't understand that it's like an offensive thing necessarily. There's still modern day. There's art. There's Japanese and Korean like K-pop artists and things like that, and J-pop artists that are getting in trouble for dressing in blackface because they don't realize the racial connotations that go along with that, the history that goes along with shit like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, as Americans, we see that and we'll instantly paint them as pieces of shit without really realizing that other societies don't think of race the way shit. Look at the Brazilian people. They like in Brazil, they have, I think it's like over 200 races or something. Like, they break themselves down to that many like levels.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's insane. And they have a lot of racist problems in Brazil.
They do have a lot of Brazilians break themselves down that much?
Yeah.
Brazilian people with the same backgrounds, I think lighter skin is king over there. So like if you're darker skin, you're lower on the social structure, and yeah, it's crazy stuff. Like, it depends on how much of your mix is African American or darker skinned, and that it's crazy shit, dude.
Yeah,
that's fucking wild.
Yeah, they have so many words to describe the color of their skin. There's like they'll be like, I'm white, or I'm really white, or I am kind of white with a little bit of red, or I'm white with a little bit of yellow, I'm white with a little bit of brown, I'm white and black. And you're like, huh? Like, but they have, it's insane, like how the race breakdown, and some people want to, it's something that's been discussed a bit. I know it's just kind of a deviation, but I think it's all like in the same realm of self-identification. Because it's sort of what I was teasing out with. The Brazilians have hundreds of words to describe their race, and on some level, it's really cool to have a specific thing to refer to yourself as. It actually muddies the water a lot to say, like, how do you figure out, like, if um, there's some kind of thing that's happening disproportionately to some group of people? It's hard to figure out what collection of these hundreds of words are actually grouped together enough to say these are the people getting discriminated against. Like, that becomes very difficult to look at, you know?
Yep.
I could see that.
It's there's like trade-offs there where, like, you might get more satisfaction. Some people get more satisfaction in how to identify themselves, and then on another aspect, there's just a problem in keeping track of people and keeping track of data and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting, in Brazil they went from a small number of races to hundreds of races, and I think there's some movement to try to kind of, like, you know, bring that down to some manageable number of races to kind of look at data pretty much. But yeah, they still have race problems over there that make a lot of this stuff difficult.
No, that's interesting. I think we're probably about to shut it down here for this one. This might catch you all off guard, but I'm curious. Just in the interest of Hispanic Heritage Month, I'd be curious if we can all share, like, one thing that, you know, like, we're proud of with our culture. There's something that makes us happy about our culture, or something we enjoy about our culture. I think that'd be kind of cool to do if y'all are up for that.
Just like something we like about our culture.
Yeah, just something that makes you happy, something that makes you proud to be a Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, whatever you want to call yourself.
I guess the fact that we're just really prideful, like, when it comes to, like, no matter what type of Hispanic, like, if you're Cuban, Dominican, Puerto Rican, or whatever, like, we kind of, like, stick together very well. We don't kind of, like, separate in a way, even though we make sure we have our own identities. Like, oh, I'm not Cuban or this and that. Because growing up, for me, if someone said that I was Cuban, I'll be disrespected. I'd be like, Cuban? The fuck? Like, I ain't Cuban. Or Dominican, or, you know, vice versa too. People be like, I'm not Puerto Rican. You call me Puerto Rican? Like, but I feel like that's changed now to where it's like, no, I'm not Puerto Rican. Like, we don't view it as like a disrespect anymore. Maybe I don't. Maybe others do. But I'm saying, like, I feel like it's changed in the process to where now it's like Spanish people are kind of like joining houses now and just, like, kind of looking out for each other, I guess.
I like that.
I don't know.
What about you?
For me, it's food. Yeah, just food. It brings everybody together, and it brings people of all cultures and races, and I like the food a lot. I won't steal anything from anyone else, but I have another one. But yeah, the food for me, that's it. It's really where it's at.
I've never been disappointed with any of the food that I've had from, like, that y'all have shown me. Like, Doey's mom throws down. She makes some of the best damn food. The Cuban joints that you've taken to me to when I've gone to Florida, like, just everything's so damn good. So damn good.
That Cuban sandwich from Twin Peaks.
Oh,
I didn't have that sandwich.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there next time I'm there.
All right, we're done there. Me, kind of riffing a bit off of what Mateo was mentioning earlier with the Day of the Dead stuff of trying to flip something from a negative to a positive. I personally love that. It seems like across the board, like Hispanic, Latinos, Latine, Latinx people, Latinx, sorry, it's an English word. There's like a sense of, like, nothing is taboo in terms of what we could make jokes about. I fucking love, like, how, like, someone will and Dominicans are even more so in that camp, where they'll joke about anything. Like, someone will just have died, we're at the funeral, and someone will crack a joke about how that dead person ain't shit, and, like, but it's like necessary, you know. Like, it's like it's a way of coping or grieving or dealing with, you know, life. But it just, I don't know, there's a strange positivity to it that, I don't know, I personally love. I mean, I love laughing. I'm a pretty happy guy, so I love, I don't know, I just love the idea of, like, anytime anything is bad, we're just gonna try to make light of it and just try to find happiness, you know.
Damn, that's my exact one.
Damn.
That's the same thing I was going to mention, because there's this quote that I love. It's by Guillermo del Toro. There's this reporter. She asked him, you surround yourself with so much fantasy and terror in your work. How do you manage to remain joyful and like loving and happy? That's not quite a direct quote. And his response was, porque soy mexicano. And I thought that was just such a good answer. I thought it was just so good, because there's so much, like I said, we're a culture that came from just really negative things. Like, we came from conquest and rape and subjugation. And there's always this joy. There's always this happiness, even in the dark times, that is possible. And it's, I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing for our culture. I think it's one of the best things about our culture, besides the fucking food. We make the best food,
the food
hands down.
What was your extra one, though?
No, what you said at the end, comedy, laughing, being funny, telling stories. I don't know anybody who likes to laugh more than like Cuban people, and like we just like to make fun of everything, kind of like what Pucho was saying. We really like to laugh.
Like,
Also,
I feel like the only way that Dave Chappelle could be funnier is if he was Dominican.
Actually, I take back a statement earlier. I said that Dave Chappelle's the best in the storytelling game. That's wrong. It's John Leguizamo, actually. John Leguizamo, his stand-ups, his storytelling ability is unmatched. Dude, that man is ridiculous, especially his old specials.
He's really good. I like him as a person, especially in the movie Pest. Look at Pucho.
Oh, God. I hate Pest. Pest, I think, is the worst movie of all time.
A mini stomach ache when I
you
said
just
that.
Fucking made me gain a little hate for the culture. Right? Like, this is what the culture brought to the world. The Pest.
He's a Latino.
Yeah, he's Colombian, right? He ain't down. No, let me stop. No. And we love the Colombian people.
We love all
cousin's
people.
Colombian.
All color, all race, doesn't matter how you identify. Treat everybody, love everybody.
Yep.
Treat everybody.
The shower scene, Pucho, in Pest.
That's how it starts. That shit is terrible. Them curtains all up in his shower. That shit was all just stomach ache inducing.
Well, if you stuck through the whole episode, thank you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that like button. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Baby R Us. We're everywhere.
Ring-a-ling bell, that ding-a-ling bell.
Facts. And one up yourself. Always one up yourself.
Peace.